Welcome. It is May 13th, 2024. I hope you all had a terrific weekend, but of course, now we're back at it. And of course, I'm talking about growth and marketing. So, what are we talking about today? Well, last week I kicked off a conversation about open and honest communication and the need to build trust. Now, I know a lot of people out there are like, hey, I really want growth hacks, or I want to talk about brand awareness, or I want to talk about data. And I'll get into all those things, but without trust, as that Forrester article last week showed, we need trust because B2B buyers are buying from a place of fear a lot of times. And so trust is an absolutely critical component of that. And to highlight that fact, I share an article from Jason Lemkin, the Godfather himself, where he talks about how some companies have lost trust and the impact that it has. And then Devin Reed talks about how trust is his content mission, not driving content downloads, not driving organic visits, but trust. So that's some interesting stuff there. And then we get into A/B testing and finding incremental revenue in B2B SaaS. Now, a lot of people out there are like, hey, you really need to determine whether your marketing efforts are working based on the amount of incremental revenue they drive. And how can we determine that? Through testing. But a lot of smaller B2B SaaS companies are going to have challenges around A/B testing. And so we'll discuss that. And then finally, we wrap up. Samantha McKenna talks about LinkedIn algorithm hacks. So if you're one of those people pursuing founder-led growth, you'll definitely want to check this out. All right, let's get started. Okay, let's take a look at this post from Jason Lemkin. He starts off by saying, a tough truth in SaaS is that many of us are now walking around at damaged brands, at least to some extent. What happened? The pricing games, terrible renewal conversations, and ripoffs of 2022 to 2024. Look, for the most part, these tactics worked in the short term. Customers were forced to pay 20% more over the past 2 years for products that added no appreciable new functionality. Customers were threatened if they tried to take their data with them. Customers were punished into multi-year contracts when they didn't ask for them. And so I think we've all seen this or experienced it at some level. And I mean, a lot of this is because people are having trouble growing through new customer acquisition. So they said, we're going to expand. But as a result, they abuse the trust of some of their customers in this effort to expand. And so Jason goes on to say, but those brands are now tarnished for their overly aggressive tactics towards existing customers. Why does that matter? And of course, this speaks to me right here. This is it. Because study after study has shown we only buy more products from brands we trust and connect with. Rip off your customers, they may renew, but will they buy your new marketing product, your AI product, your new analytics suite? No, they won't. They may renew if they're prisoners, if it's too hard to switch, but we buy more from vendors we trust. HubSpot was very careful here for years, for example. Now the average customer buys multiple products from HubSpot. Datadog did the same thing for yours. Yes, suites are great, but it's more than that. We have limited time and knowledge. All things being equal, we buy more from vendors we trust. Did you break some of that trust in the past 18 to 24 months? So this just highlights exactly what I'm talking about. And it goes back to that Forrester article I shared last week, which is people make defensive buying decisions. Buying decisions in B2B affect both their career, their individual career, and the company. There's a lot weighing on these decisions. And so if you don't trust the organization you're buying from, then you're not going to expand your relationship with them. And also, I don't think you're going to renew with them. If you just don't trust the organization, why would you continue to do business with them unless it was very, very hard to move? But that's why, I mean, companies are getting smart. They're making it easier for people to switch and move. So that's it right there. And this is why trust is so important. And how do you even get it back once you lose it? It's very hard. Okay, now let's take a look at this post from Devin Reed, who is head of content for Clary. He says, my content's team's mission is not to create brand, pipeline, revenue. Those are goals. Our mission is to build trust at scale. Why? We know we need to win mind share before we can win market share. It's much more powerful to earn attention, build an audience, convert trust into action. That's how we think about growing brand, pipeline, revenue, etc. I cover some of the how in the video below, which I'll share the clip. If your content strategy is designed to build trust at scale, it's damn near impossible to lose. All right, let's take a look at what he has to say in here.
How do you build trust in your marketing?
Ooh, how do you build trust? So it's funny because that's the mission of my team is to build trust at scale.
That's why I was pumped to ask you this.
Okay.
It was kind of inspired by that slide.
So how do you build trust at scale is a good question. So the first thing is you have to stop talking about your product first. You have to put not the buyer first. You need to champion the problem, and then you need to champion the person with the problem, and then you get the opportunity to talk about your product. So it seems simple. It is not simple when you're in a review meeting with your CEO or with your VP of sales or your CRO, and they're like, but we're the best and we have the best tech and all this stuff. There's no knock. Every CEO I talk about is obsessed with their product. I get it, it's their baby. But the truth is no one gives a about your product. Not yet. And so for me, building trust at scale is focus on the problem, because if you can own the problem, people assume you have the best solution. If you talk about your solution, people assume you're trying to get money out of them. And so if you focus on the problem, and then the next way, if you want to get a little more tactical, is you need to verbalize the problem with all of the emotions in the same language that your buyers do.
All right, that's some great tips there. Focusing on the problem, absolutely critical. And that's what you're trying to solve for your users. Solve that problem. And then using the same language as they use. And we've talked about that before in the past, but really communicating with your prospects, your users in the same language they use. And so this is why I get back to focusing on the open and honest communication to build trust. And so Devin Reed provides some great tips here. Okay, let's take a look at this article I put together, and the title of it is, Can B2B SaaS Companies Use A/B Testing to Determine If Their Marketing Efforts Are Driving Incremental Revenue? And as I say within the article, a lot of people out there are saying, hey, if you want to know if your marketing efforts are working, you have to see whether they're driving incremental revenue. And how do you do that? Well, A/B testing is one of the options. The challenge is that a lot of B2B SaaS companies don't have enough users to be able to do a A/B test to significance in a reasonable amount of time. I just want to highlight this process. You can read the article to understand more about this, but this is actually how I went about and looked at it. So this is data from a past client, and they had on a monthly basis 6,424 users, and they were closing 7 deals. And so the conversion rate from user to deal was 0.11%. So if we wanted to run an A/B test with them, BWO put together this calculator. And so if we went through and said, okay, our conversion rate is 0.11%, as I said, and say I just want to create one additional deal. One additional deal would be a 14% increase in conversion rate. So I'm looking for a 14% increase in conversion rate. And the number of users I have on a daily basis is 214. That would require 11,258 days to get to significance. Now, that's like 30 years, almost 30 years. I'm not going to do the math off the top of my head, but it's a lot of years. So anyway, that's the challenge that B2B SaaS companies have. And so I provide another example here from a different previous client, and they have a total conversion rate of 0.04%. And they have, and to get one additional deal, it would be a 7% increase. And they have more visitors. And you think this is, oh, they have 37, almost 40,000 a month. So on a daily basis, that's 1259. So to get this 21,000, that's almost 60 years. So this is the challenge smaller B2B SaaS companies have. So you hear someone out there saying, hey, just run an A/B test. This is to see if you're getting incremental revenue. This is the reality a lot of companies are facing. And so, but the thing is like, people present this as like, this is the way to do it. This is the only way to do it. But this isn't a reality for these companies. And so they shouldn't not A/B test. They just have to find things higher in the funnel, which will allow them to test. It can't just be that we're not going to A/B test at all. It can still be very beneficial to them. And so you can't be religious about the idea that you have to have incremental revenue in this situation, or that you have to, or that your A/B test has to show that. And I hate the fact that, companies may say, hey, we're not going to A/B test because we can't do this. That's not the right outcome here. And so find ways to do your A/B test, but it may not be on incremental revenue. It may be some other factor. And then just consider that as you get higher in the funnel, it's just not going to be as meaningful But the other thing this opens the door to, because you're not getting to an actual specific measure in terms of incremental revenue, is looking at attribution. Now, attribution is getting a lot of heat out there because people are like, it's not accurate. But if you do first touch attribution on certain marketing efforts, for instance, non-branded paid search, you get to a place where you're like, okay, I know this person was searching for whatever solution it is. It doesn't have my brand in there. They converted to a close one deal with this amount of revenue. It's first touch. You can feel confident that a lot of that could be attributed back to that paid search campaign. So you can use first touch attribution in that instance. And so again, we can't get religious about saying we can't use attribution. There are definitely instances where it is meaningful. And so that's my takeaway here, is that for smaller B2B SaaS companies, there are a way to measure the effectiveness of your marketing, but it's going to require some sort of compromise. But the options are available. You can do this. Anyway, test it out for yourself. I provided some links to some calculators out there for you to try it yourself and see what you can do from an A/B test perspective. But go out there and test. It's really critical. Go out there and figure out how you're performing, and don't get tied up in what people are saying you have to do. There are options out there. It may not be perfect, but we can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. All right. Okay, let's take a look at this post from Samantha McKenna, which I think is really interesting. If you're either trying to build your own brand or if you're trying to pursue a founder-led growth strategy, these are some great tips she provides on expanding your LinkedIn reach. And so let's take a look at it. Did you know that hitting repost with your thoughts on someone's LinkedIn post is one of the easiest ways to significantly reduce the exposure of your post? Did you also know that tagging one person in your post is harmless, but that tagging multiple people might hinder the post visibility almost immediately? And what do you do when you spot a typo in your post? Delete it, edit it, delete it, and repost. Now, if I ever made typos, I would have an answer to this. No, I'm just kidding. I obviously want to edit it immediately or delete it if there's multiple, but generally just edit it immediately. But Samantha actually trains people on how to build their LinkedIn presence and how to do social selling via LinkedIn. And she has 10 hacks to hack the LinkedIn algorithm. And let's just take a look at what those are. Okay, let's take a look at the actual article from Samantha where she provides 10 LinkedIn hacks. She has great tips in here, but I'm not going to go through all of them, just a couple of the ones that are most interesting to me. But definitely take a look at it because it's great. It has a lot of great information within here. First up, tagging multiple people in your poster beware. So she says basically if you're going to tag one person, that's fine. But if you're going to tag multiple people, they need to engage within the first hour. Otherwise, LinkedIn sees that as spam, which is a really interesting tip. I mean, I tag a lot of people in my posts when I reference their articles. And usually they get back to, they engage with it, but it's not always within the first hour. So this is interesting, something I'm definitely going to keep in mind. Don't use words like sign up, subscribe, register, link, or link to posts outside of LinkedIn. LinkedIn doesn't like that. It's trying to keep it within their sort of walled garden. So something to keep in mind. If there is something you want to link to, you might want to see where they shared it via LinkedIn and link to that rather than the actual article itself. And then she says editing or deleting a post within the first hour and then reposting. Both of those will lower your engagement. So don't do that. You're just going to have to sit there and deal with your typo for at least an hour. So that's a great tip. And then I thought this post versus repost with your thoughts. She says if you're trying to just give recognition to an author out there, then just repost without your thoughts, because when you add your thoughts, it really suppresses your level of engagement. So don't do that. And then I thought this one was also really interesting because I see this quite a bit, is that some posts get low likes but with really high impressions, and others get high likes with less impressions. And she said that means you created content that was interesting and engaging. People are reading it and processing it without just clicking like. And so LinkedIn likes that they're engaging with it and thinking about it. And so it's going to reward you from an impression standpoint. So if you see that situation, which I see quite often, that means you're producing interesting content. And I'm not saying I'm producing interesting content, but I have seen this situation quite often. So Anyway, another tip there. So anyway, definitely take a look at all these tips out there. There's really good information.